history comes in two forms. There is the oral history and written history, or the written and the unwritten history. Mostly, we all know that written history is more reliable than the oral one, because oral history are the stories of events which parents have transferred to their children, and the children have maintained all of these. And if you look at it carefully, you see that oral history consists of culture mainly, which is traditions, customs, language, behavior, and all kinds of social lineages. So we cannot really talk more of the unwritten, because that varies from generation to generation. So I'm going to talk about the written part of our history. Ashanti, as we all know, is a word that describes a people who live in the central part of Ghana. At the moment, I believe the Ashantis are about 4.6 million people, and we occupy about 10.2 landmark of the whole Ghana geography, the landmarks of the whole Ghana. Ashantis occupy about 10.2%. Now, what is Ashanti, or what normally is pronounced as Ashanti? If you read history books, there is an ancient history, well, not quite ancient, the oldest history about us is was written in 1819. A British gentleman called Thomas Edward Bowditch came to our area here. He was sent by British merchants to come to study the people who call themselves Ashantis. And what he wrote is in a book which we all know is called Mission from Cape Coast Castle to Ashanti. It was published in 1819. Thomas Bowditch came here in 1817, and whatever he saw or learned is documented in that book. It is the oldest history book about the Ashanti people. In fact, you cannot go beyond Bowditch to find any comprehensive book that talks about Ashanti people. According to him, the Ashanti nation was formed by Osei Tutu. And Osei Tutu, according to him, was a kind of military leader. I think Openo Sekojo and Safo Kantanka would be ready to tell us the root source of Ashanti. They know better than myself in that sense. But what we know is that the founder was Osei Tutu, who is believed to be an Ashanti person. He came to merge all the municipalities or the small towns around his neighborhood, around Kumau, Bantama, and maybe one or two others. He merged them all into a single unit. He learned this art, I believe, from the Denchera people, who most of the people in this area, Dencheras were the overlords of the Kan people in this area. So this guy learned a lot from them, and he came to unite the people, and they became very, very strong. And they were able to co-opt a whole lot of neighbors into the kingdom. It's believed that Osei Tutu conquered Achim, Asin, Denchera, and later on some other states. He became very powerful, and he formed a very powerful nation. And when he died, the next person who came to the throne was Opoku Ware. Opopowari is believed to be the son of Osetutu's mother. They were sisters. And he also added some territories onto the Ashanti kingdom. And if you look at the history closely, you see that all the leaders, especially the first 7 leaders from Osetutu up to the beginning of the 18th century, the 19th century, you see that they were all warriors. And they were able to defend themselves and also annex other nations at the time. So now, what we really want to know is the written story of these leaders. What made Ashanti people so powerful compared to the other clan groups in the area? I think it was purely due to the dynamic leadership of these kings. They did pretty well. Each king comes on the throne and organized the masses into fighting groups, and they were able to conquer other nations and made the Ashantis very, very powerful. If you notice, I keep using the word Ashanti and Asante. Asante is what we really call ourselves, the Asantes, but the English made it SH. They think that the pronunciation of Asante has to have H in it. So sometimes I will be using Ashanti as colonial masters give it to us, but really we are Asantes. So at this point, I think we should really break it down into the time when Osetutu came to the scene, and then follow up to the beginning of about 100 years after that. Thomas Bowditch says that if you go about 110 years from the time he visited us in 1817, he says that if you go about 110 years, you can trace the source of Osetutu. By that token, it means that if he came here in 1817, and if you go 110 years prior, it means that Osetutu came to the scene around 1707. Some people are making it 1717. I think we can't be too far off. Osetutu came to the scene at that point, and it was from Osetutu's time when people can really talk about Ashanti as a nation. Prior to Osetutu time, there was no single unit or kingdom or country called Ashanti. It was him who formed a group of Akan-speaking people into a single unit and named it Ashanti. And I think the historians like Osekojo and Safo Kantanka can also enlighten us more on that. It's believed that it's because we're always fighting, trying to suppress others and take over. That is, in Chi we call something Esa, which is war. So people named as Esa for warriors or something. You can really see the Ashanti as a nation, the significance of the nation for just before the end of the 20th century. You see that Ashanti became a very prominent unit in the whole area, that part of Africa.
The people of Ashanti occupy the middle section of Ghana, and they are in the forest zone. They form part of an ethnic group called the Akans. When I say the Akans are the following people: Fante, Asante, Akuapem, Bono, Asen, Adanse, Akwamu, Sefi, Wasa, and Achim. These are the Akan people. The Akan people have they have the same behavior pattern. They eat with the right hand. They greet with the right hand. When speaking to a group of, or when they are speaking or they are emphasizing points, they use the right hand. When they are greeting a group of people, they start from the right to the left. And anybody who does not do that to them is not an Akan person. They also have another unique system, and that is the clan system. When we talk about the clan system, the Akans have another unique system which identify them as one people, and that is the clan system. Here they believe that some 8 clan women gave birth to all Akans, and the names of the clans are Oyoko, Eduana, Asuna, Bretuo, Asenye, Aguna, and Asachiri, and Aguna, and Ekwana, and Asachiri. They believe that all people from Oyoko are believed to be the children of a single ancestress, no matter where they come from. So that if you have an Oyoko man from Ashanti and he goes to Bron and he sees an Oyoko person, that person is a brother. An Oyoko man, or say a Duana from Ashanti, goes to Fanti and he sees somebody from Fanti land who is an Oyoko, is an Aduana person. He is a brother or sister. So wherever they go, they get other people who belong to their clan, and that also is another unique system. And when such a person needs somebody of the same clan, he takes that person as a brother or sister, and he can go and lodge him with him. Whenever he needs something, he will be supplied by that person. So you have the clan system going through all the Akan places.
It's important to know that Ashanti did not come from the blue. It did not just come. It is a union of states. States of what people call tribes, nations, and city-states came together to make up what we call Ashanti today. Now, the nations that existed, some have been mentioned already, but I think some were left out, and it's important that I add those that were left out. The Akans could be found, of which the Ashanti is part. The Akan, of which the Ashanti is a part, is found in Ghana. The larger group of the Akans are in Ghana. Then Ivory Coast. You may have heard of some of these names that constitute the Akan nation. Some are the Nzema, who live in Ghana and Ivory Coast. So there are Nzemas in Ghana and there are Nzemas in Ivory Coast. Wassa in Ghana, Sefi, Aorin, and Bono in Ghana. We also have Bono in the Ivory Coast. In the Ivory Coast, there are still prominent Akan group called the Anin, Baule, and Bete. over 58% of the Akan community live in Ghana. That is to say, if you take the population of Ghana, about 58% or even more are Akans. Now, if you go to Ivory Coast, about 42% or even more are Akans. So the Akan population of the Ivory Coast is about 42%. The Akans have certain things in common. They are matrilineal, that is, they identify themselves according to their maternal lines. And it was mentioned that there are about 8 clans. And these 8 clans in Ghana and Ivory Coast, wherever you go and you mention the Akan, you can find at least 7 and at most about 9 of such clans that constitute the Akan community. And these are the Oyoko clan, and they identify themselves with symbols. And these symbols are usually animals, birds, or bush, or game. And the Oyoko people, or the Oyoko clan, uses the hawk as their symbol. So if you go to any part outside Ashanti and go to maybe Ivory Coast or the coast where Akans live in Ghana or Ivory Coast, you will find the Oyoko people still identifying themselves with the same hawk. The Ekona group or the clan use the buffalo as their symbol. That is, wherever you go among the Akans, you will find the buffalo being used as the symbol of the Ekona group or clan. You also have the Aduana clan or group of the Akan. They use the dog as their symbol. We have the Asechiri group. Still, everywhere you go among the Akans, if the name changes at all, the symbol does not change. So we have the vulture as the symbol of the Asechiri people. Then we have the Asenia. The Asenia group or the Asenia clan uses the bats as their symbol. Then the Asona group or clan also uses the crow as the symbol. The Agona group uses the parrot as their symbol, and then the Britu uses the leopard as their symbol. One other significant identity of the Akan, common identity, is the naming. They actually name their children according to the days of the week, the days they were born. Now, if a person is born on Monday, Kojo is Monday, and Kwame is Saturday. Kwame is born on Saturday. Then we have the Sunday, which is Kwesi for a male and Kosuya for a female. Yeah, the Akan also believe that they have a common origin. They have a common origin, and they have common eating habits, common behavioral pattern. That is to say, what would hurt an Ashanti man or woman would hurt an Achim or would hurt somebody from Mfante or wherever. So long as they are Akans, they identify themselves with these things. The feelings are virtually the same. The place of origin, they believe the Akans in general, for which the Ashanti form part, believe they originated, or their origin could be traced to the ancient Ghana. That is within the Mali area. That is where ancient Ghana was. So from ancient Ghana, they moved gradually, step by step, not overnight, years, to other places. So they moved through the northern part of Ghana and came and settled at Bonomaso, which is the Bono community, which exists today. And that is where they started spreading to various parts of Ghana and Ivory Coast. So this is a gist of the people called Akan and their origin.
The Ashanti people who form part of the Akan people, believe that they are from ancient Ghana, and they moved southwards and to the present day Ashanti area. The reason for their movement was one, population explosion. They were farmers and they wanted large areas of land to farm, and at a certain point the Ghana Empire was so populated that they had to move to find places adequately for their farming ventures. Then secondly, when there were inter-empire wars from Ghana Empire, Mali, these wars also disturbed a lot of them. Therefore, they moved southwest to find a place convenient for their farming ventures. Then lastly, when the Muslim religion started, they were forcing people to accept the new religion. And the Akan people believed in God, but they worshipped God through their deities. So because of this religious problem, they just moved into the forest region to have their peace of mind. They first entered Gonja land in the north, and after some time they moved gradually through river valleys and wind gaps to where they are stated. When they got to these places, they started to found nations. In fact, they started making states. Ashantis came in, when Osei Tutu came in. In fact, before Osei Tutu, they had individual states. Then they were first, they served Adansi. We had Adansi state, and they started governing the people. Then later on, the Adansi people also formed a state, and they were through the Adansi state. So they became the overlords. And during the time of the Denchra people, they were ruling the nations with iron hands. Every Akwesidae, or every 42 days, the people from the other places were going to Denchra with some commodities to serve the people of the capital, and the capital was called Abankasieso. They will send firewood, they will send red clay, and they will also send plantain fiber. Plantain fiber was used as toilet rolls. Red clay for painting and firewood for lighting. And these commodities were sent to Denchra by the young men and the young women. When the young men got to the capital, they would be asked to weed around the capital. Then the women would be sweeping the streets of the capital. And the worst thing about this was that the women were being they would be called into the houses, and sometimes, whether they were married or not married, they will have sex with some people. It became an unfortunate situation. Sometimes somebody will go and come back pregnant, and people could not say a word because they were being having sex with their overlords. So this became a problem for them, and people therefore saw this as maltreatment. So they gathered forces to fight and overthrow these people. And those people who gathered forces, or those people who came together because of the injustice, were called Ashanti, people who have come together because of war. And in fact, it began somewhere before Osei came. But they were able to achieve their aim during the reign of Osei. He had mastered the art of war, especially with the use of guns, and he brought them together. In fact, and then they were able to overthrow their overlords, and they became the overlords. In fact, it was not a simple thing. If you go through the history, states in Ashanti or in Ghana who fought were many. In fact, we had as many as about 31 or more chiefs coming together during that war, and that brought that victory. We had states like Kumasi State, Osei was the king. Mampon State, Manantuo was the chief. Kokofu State, Ajemampomfi, Jabin, Adakwa Yadom, Bekwai, Egu Ayabuafu, Nsuta, Udro Penin, Kwa Maim, Kumawu, Chinebua Kodria, Joso Dikopim, Sumija, Onomapel, Agona Konfanochi, Kontinase, Ochre Fram, Bechem, Fosua Henia, Asokore, Quatarin the first, Jansa, Yabua Kodie, Ubogu, Okani, Jadem, Tabri Tiatri, Denyase, Akusan Yadom, Agogo, Kwabnetoku, Bompata, Ofusu Hina Penting, Kwa Mime, Ntro Nimpa, Offenso, Yafia Kenting, Manson Quanta, Bofobi, Boposo, Boama Obin, Asokore, Boachi Dankwa, Amoafo, Akuoku Nimpa the first, Adankrenya, Efo Akwesi, Mabai, da Akumunchi, Dian Quanta, Boachi Tromum, Asamai, Akurajima, Akodie, Kwabnebrua, and Tepa. These were all states, individual state chiefs who came together to fight the Denchira people to conquer them. So the war of liberation had a lot of people coming together to fight. Another thing about them was also people were determined even to sacrifice. Apart from the people going to war, they sacrificed themselves with their lives. These were the chief of Maskase called Ashanti, the chief of Ejuso called Dikopim, the chief of Kumawu called Chinebua Koduya, and finally the chief of Mampong, Boahin and Entuo. They sacrificed their life with their life in order that Ashanti nation could stand on the feet. If people want to know more about the Ashantis and everything and the wars, you can get them from Ashanti History Part 1, Ashanti History Part 2 Volume 1, Ashanti History Part 2 Volume 2, written by myself, Osekwejo. Thank you.
I'm going to add just a little bit of our history to what we have already heard from Mr. Osekwejo and Mr. Osebonsu Safukantanka. What I like to add now is the name Ashanti, its origin, how we got the name, and when the name actually took effect. We all believe that, even not just the oral history, we believe that the written history shows that Ashantis, or the Ashanti people, came together to fight a mighty power in the area. That power was called Denchera. All the people in the areas which are called Ashanti now were under Denchera people, or most of them. So when Osei managed to bring them all together and declare war on Intimjekari, who was the king of Denchera area, they all supported him, and they fought a war at Feyiase, a small village near Bekwai. From Asanso, you go to Feyiase. They declared war and fought a very severe, hard war, and they were able to defeat Intimjekari. So from that point coming, the name Ashanti as a kingdom became established. And as Mr. Osebonsu talked about earlier on, that a certainty because of war, meaning that the Ashanti people were warriors right from the beginning. They came together necessarily for the sake of war, a certainty. That name, instead of now being called a sentinel, it's being called Ashanti. So we Ashantis are fundamentally warrior people. And they did that to claim land because the population was expanding. They need more land for farming and so forth and so on. So what made Ashanti people stronger from the period which I referred earlier on as 1717 or 1707 coming? You could see that there's been a series of war leaders. From Osei Tutu, we come to Opokuware, Kosi Ubudum, Osekwejo, and so forth and so on. They all play their role, and each king that comes on throne try to add one or more states to the kingdom. So the kingdom became really large. Just before the falling, it became to fall around 1870s. It has become very huge, controlling more than 75% of the whole Gold Coast at the time. So this is the basis of Ashanti as a kingdom. And I think I will let Mr. Osebonsu to talk about the kingdom itself, right from Osei Tutu coming up, how it became large and powerful nation, which caused even the British to send someone to come to study that powerful kingdom.
It's important to know that the Ashanti was not as a matter of fact, one of the nations in those days. When they migrated from Bonomaso, all the Akans were living at Bonomaso before they scattered to various parts of Ghana and Ivory Coast. Now they went as groups, and wherever they settled, they gave themselves a name. This brought about the formation of different ethnic groups coming together to make the Akan. So these ethnic groups were sometimes nation states or city-states within the nation-states. Now, within the Kumasi, the place that became Kumasi, there were states which were independent, like Tafo, Kase, Asukore Mampong, Kenyase, Edumakase Kese. There were very many other city-states that originally was not Kumasi. They were independent on their own. There was also Doma. The Doma we see today, which is a state on its own, originally was one of the states, one of the nation's city-states within the Kumasi metropolis. Apart from the Kumasi, the city-states that made up Kumasi, there were also independent nation-states. These independent nation-states, apart from Kumasi, were Adanse, Sechere, Ahafo, Manjina, which capital is Offenso. Then we have the Bono, Amansie. So in Amansie, they had, within the Amansie nation state, they had Bekwai, Kukufu, Asuminya, and many more. Within the Bono state or nation state, they had Techiman, Doma, Drobo, and within the Ahafo, we also had Tepa, Dwaya, Ngwanta, Bichim, and others. Then we had the Ashanti Achim. Ashanti Achim had Agogo, Ubogu, Asankare, Bompata, and many more. Sechere area. The Sechere area, or the Sechere state, had also city-states within it, and that were Mampong, Dwabe, Kumawu, Nsuta, Aguna, and all these coming together to form the Adanse was a nation state with only one capital, with one state, one city state, which was the capital, and that was Formina. And with all these states, they were struggling among themselves. They were trying to exhibit their powers. Each was struggling to be the leader, so that there were a lot of squabbles, fighting, and so these nations went to war many, many times. One would ask, how did people start to concentrate, population start concentrating around the Kumasi region? It came about, they were at a place. That means from Bono Maso, when they had scattered, at Amansie, there is a place that is where the people almost always trace their origin to, and that is Ashanti Maso. Ashanti Maso is the place where the Ashanti people have more often than not traced their roots. And it's not only this word Ashanti Maso appears to sound like Ashanti, but that the origin of that word Ashanti Maso is different from the origin of Ashanti. Ashanti is a senti, that is singular. Now the plural is Asa. Asa is war, and its plural, which is Asa, means wars. So the name was coined from war. The people wanted to come together, and they came together to fight to overthrow their overlord, which was the Dangerous State. Now this coming together gave them the name Ashanti. That is, we are coming together to defend ourselves. They did not come together because they wanted to come together and always call themselves a war machine. But they had a policy that whoever attacked us would have to group ourselves together and then fight to ward off whoever wants to take us for enemies. It's significant to know that the people who call themselves Ashanti people, have always traced their origin to Sumya Santemaso within the Amansia district of Ashanti. And they spread from that place as a people to Kukufu, where they settled for a very long time. From Kukufu, a greater number of them moved towards Kumasi, because Kwamai, which became Kumasi, and Doma were within the same area and were very powerful. So people, because of their power in trade and military might, people were trying to take shelter within the Kwamai and then Doma area. So people coming from Amansie pushed down to Kumasi. It is from Kukufu that we had the first chiefs or kings of Kwamai. So we had, it's from Kukufu. They came from Kukufu, that is Chum and Entry, Krobia Menfi, Utia Kente, and Obriabwa. They all came from Kukufu. All right. So this is how they came from Kukufu to settle in Kwamai.